Puff was like stuttering and like, hold on, I'm gonna let you talk to the doctor.
Imagine loving someone so deeply that even decades later, every headline, every rumor, every new tell-all finds a way to drag your heart back to the night everything ended. For years, Faith Evans stayed quiet while the internet rewrote her story, while conspiracy videos racked up views, and while an entire generation repeated whispers that she never asked for. But not anymore. Faith Evans is finally breaking the silence around the Notorious B.I.G's. The love, the betrayal, the lies she's had to live through, and the rumor that set the internet on fire all over again. And just when you think this story couldn't get darker, a new wave of accusations dragged her straight into the center of Biggie's legacy and the fight for his name. The truth she reveals will challenge everything you thought you knew. And that's not even the most jaw-dropping part. It began like a fairy tale. In the summer of 1994, during a Bad Boy Records photo shoot buzzing with young talent, Faith Evans met Christopher Wallace, the man the world would come to know as the Notorious B.I.G. She was a church-trained R&B singer with a velvet voice, and he was a Brooklyn poet with lyrics that painted pain and ambition in equal measure. Their chemistry was instant, undeniable. Within weeks, not the 7 days fans love to exaggerate, but barely 2 months, they were married. Faith has said it herself. They were young, impulsive, and completely unaware of how fame was about to reshape their world. She often describes Biggie as brutally honest, the kind of man who never hid the truth even when it hurt. If she confronted him, he'd admit everything without hesitation. That raw honesty, mixed with their passion, held them together through chaos for a while. But the higher Biggie climbed, the harder temptation pulled. Lil' Kim, Charlie Baltimore, names whispered in studio halls and printed in tabloids. Faith never pretended to be perfect. She's admitted she loved fiercely, fought harder, and made mistakes that taught her survival in a world where love and loyalty rarely stayed simple. Faith and Biggie's love story was passionate, but it was also explosive. They weren't just fighting the world. Sometimes they were fighting each other. Faith once recalled leaving Puff's son's christening in a cab with friends, heading straight to confront one of Biggie's side women. Looking back, she laughs at her recklessness, but admits she wasn't there to talk. She was young, jealous, and in love. She says it wasn't her proudest moment, but it was real. Then came another moment, a phone call from Biggie that didn't sit right. He told her he wouldn't be in his hotel room, but Faith knew better. She planned everything, left her daughter with a friend, caught an early flight, and when the door opened, she swung first and asked questions later. By noon, she was back in Brooklyn like nothing happened. One story hit deeper. A church friend once stopped to admire her baby, but when Biggie and his crew pulled up mid-argument, things turned violent. Faith was horrified. This wasn't street business. This was her world colliding with chaos. These weren't tabloid tales. They were two young people loving, hurting, and learning that fame couldn't fix what life was breaking. March 9, 1997, the night that would change hip-hop forever. In Los Angeles, outside the Peterson Automotive Museum, a black BMW carrying the Notorious B.I.G. was sprayed with bullets in a drive-by shooting. Chaos filled the streets, flashing police lights, sirens echoing through the night. The city that had once crowned him a rap king became the place where he took his last breath. The world lost Biggie Smalls that night, but Faith Evans lost something even greater: her husband, her friend, and the father of her child. He was only 24. To the world, it was breaking news. For Faith, it was a wound that never closed. She later described the pain as feeling like her heart had been ripped from her chest. No matter what distance, fame, or infidelity had placed between them, their connection was never broken. They had a child, they had a bond, and they had a love story that played out like both a dream and a warning. And when that car stopped moving, Faith's world stopped too. But her story didn't end that night. The tragedy forced her to make a choice: drown in grief or rebuild from it. She chose to honor the love, not the loss. Still, tragedy had a way of following her. Long after the headlines faded, decades later, the internet would try to twist her story again. In late 2024, a so-called memoir appeared online under the title Kim's Lost Words. It claimed to be written by the late Kim Porter, Sean Diddy Combs' longtime partner, and it dropped a bombshell accusation that Diddy had orchestrated Faith's relationship with Biggie to spy on him, and that Faith secretly believed Diddy was involved in Biggie's death. Within hours, the story exploded across social media. Articles, podcasts, and reaction videos flooded the internet. turning Faith's life into content once more. Faith, who had spent years carefully protecting Biggie's legacy, was blindsided. Reports said she was mortified and absolutely disgusted. Diddy's lawyer called the memoir fake and offensive, and even Kim Porter's children publicly confirmed their mother never wrote a book. But the damage was already done. Faith's son, C.J. Wallace, was devastated by the rumors. She had to sit him down and tell him it was all lies. That's when Faith finally broke her silence. After years of letting the music, the memories, and the legacy speak for her, she stepped forward and drew a hard line. She made it clear she never believed Diddy had anything to do with Biggie's, and she refused to let anyone turn her marriage, her grief, or her love into someone else's weapon ever again. Within the industry, these waves hit differently. People who were there in the mid-90s, who watched the East Coast and West Coast temperature rise, understand that rumors can become history if they're repeated long enough. Faith has navigated that minefield with an approach that feels consistent. Honor Biggie's art, be honest about the chaos of their marriage, and refuse to let unverified claims turn grief into content. There's also a professional dimension. When she speaks about extending Biggie's legacy tastefully, she means the choices around what to release, how to release it, and why. This is not just about guest verses or posthumous tracks. It is about the story we tell future generations. Reducing Biggie to a victim or a crown is easy. Keeping his humanity intact, both the brilliance and the mistakes, takes more care. That has been her posture, and that is part of why the fake memoir, Revelations, hit so hard. They did not just undermine her, they distorted him. And just when it felt like the internet had calmed down, a different kind of shock rippled through the headlines. One that had nothing to do with rumors and everything to do with contracts, signatures, and the complicated math of legacy. After the passing of Biggie's mother, Voletta Wallace, reports surfaced of a legal action brought by the trust representing her interests against Faith. The heart of the dispute centers on the sale of rights connected to Biggie's music catalog, a transaction that reportedly involved a major publishing company and carried a staggering valuation. The trustee claims Faith wrongfully withheld the trust's share of proceeds and refused to share key documents. There is a request to remove her as manager of the limited liability company that oversees Biggie's catalog. The figures are dizzying. The emotions behind them are heavier than any dollar amount can capture. On the surface, it reads like business. Underneath, it feels like family. A widow who has stood on stages honoring her husband now facing allegations from the estate once guided by his mother. Fans do not always see the mechanics of legacy. How guardianship of an artist's name and work can turn into a courtroom maze. How love and memory can collide with spreadsheets and legal clauses. What matters for this story is simple. The person who has fought to keep Biggie's story alive now finds herself defending how she is keeping that story alive. It is not salacious. It is not a viral clip. It is a reminder that when art becomes history, history becomes an estate, and an estate can become a battleground. And yes, while the legal filings made noise, Faith kept the through line steady. Her stance has always been that she is attached to a huge legacy, and that her job is to extend it with care. Whether that care is judged fairly or not, the courts will sort out the paperwork. The public will keep watching, and the music will remain. When people try to rewrite history with rumors, Faith's answer is to return to the primary sources, the words she and Biggie actually said. He told a magazine back in 1997 that while he and Faith were no longer together, they were cool. He said they did it backwards, got married too fast, but still loved each other. She has said repeatedly that he was honest, that when she asked a hard question, he did not hide. She has been transparent about the affairs that cut her, and about the moments she is not proud of. The flights, the fights, the close calls that could have ended very badly. And through it all, she has refused to turn her worst memories into revenge. Instead, she turned them into music. That insistence on art over outrage is not weakness, it is a choice. And it is a choice worth underlining because it explains why, when a fraudulent book tried to cast her as a conspirator, she drew a hard line. Her story is not perfect, but it is hers. Her love for Biggie was not a PR strategy. Her grief was not staged. Her commitment to their son, and to his daughter from a previous relationship, is not a talking point. It is a life. Reactions online were intense when the fake memoir hit. You saw anger, disbelief, and the tired weariness of people who have watched the same conspiracy repackage itself every few years. You also saw defense, people who have followed Faith's interviews, who remember the legacy video, who understand the difference between a messy marriage and a murderous plot. While we are not quoting random social posts here, the pattern is obvious to anyone who has spent time in these fandom spaces. The louder the rumor, the more it divides. Some associate Faith's defense of Diddy on this point with bias. Others see it as a woman telling the truth about what she actually believed then and believes now. That split is not new. It just flares whenever the case resurfaces. So what happens now? The rumor that Faith worked for Diddy as a spy has been publicly discredited by Diddy's representatives and by Kim Porter's own children, stating there was no memoir. Faith has rejected the accusation outright and, as reported, considered legal action against the author of the so-called book. The legal dispute over catalog proceeds is its own road, winding and technical, and it sits apart from the murder conspiracy noise. Meanwhile, the unsolved facts remain what they have always been. A drive-by took the life of a young father, and official closure has never arrived. But here's where it gets even more striking. Faith's voice has changed. For years, she let the love story and the duets be the statement. Now she is speaking directly. She's drawing bright lines around what she will not accept. The implication that she ever believed her husband's friend had him harmed. The idea that she was planted in that marriage as a set of eyes. She has said enough to put a permanent dent in that narrative. And just when you think that means the story settles, it shifts again. From rumor back to responsibility. From gossip back to legacy. It is tempting to reduce this to a list of bombshells. The whirlwind marriage, the affairs, the hotel confrontation, the christening night detour, the heartbreaking shooting in Los Angeles, the unreal memoir, the estate lawsuit. But if you listen closely, the heartbeat of the story is not scandal, it is soul. Faith keeps returning to the same center. He was honest. He admitted what he did. She loved him anyway. They did things backwards, and both of them knew it. And after the world ended for her, she found a way to keep his voice singing back to hers. There is a moment in her description of making The King and I that deserves to live outside of headlines. She talks about pairing her present with his past, about reworking familiar pieces without erasing their original intent, about feeling guided as she made choices. That is not a business plan. That is faith. The word, the person, the posture. It is not flashy or algorithm-friendly. It is steady. And in a landscape where the loudest rumor often wins the day, steadiness is a kind of quiet rebellion. Every time Biggie's case returns to public conversation, the same question arrives with it. Who pulled the trigger and why? This video will not claim to know. It will not pretend that a lie in a trending book is the same thing as a clue. It will not turn a widow into a witness for a story she rejects. What we can say, based on her own statements and the reporting in front of us, is this. Faith Evans does not believe Diddy harmed Biggie. She rejects the claim that she spied on her husband. She has lived with the pain long enough to know the difference between truth and traffic. And still, the ache remains. Because no denial, no album, no interview can put a 24-year-old father back in that BMW seat and turn the car right instead of left. No legacy project can replace a childhood that needed its father. No legal filing can soothe nights that still come with memories no one else has to feel. That is the tension we often forget. The public wants answers. The family is still living with the question. There is one more turn that adds weight to everything else. The estate dispute is not a scandal about lies. It is a conflict about management, money, and control. It pulls the spotlight away from rumor and forces a harder conversation about what it means to run a legacy. Contracts are cold. Grief is hot. Put them together and you get headlines that feel more like heartbreak than drama. The trustees' claims are strong words on paper. Faith's position has long been that she has stayed true to the music her fans want, and that she approaches Biggie's legacy with intention. In other words, even when the fight is about business, the root is still love and memory. That's a twist most gossip rarely honors. And just when you think it can't get more layered, it does. Because the woman at the center, Faith Renee Evans, is not just a character in a hip-hop tragedy. She is an artist who has spent years refusing to let grief be the only note in her song. She has moved forward, faltered, loved again, fallen out of love again, kept singing, kept showing up. She is neither a saint nor a villain. She is a human being who loved a human being and who will be tied to his name forever. So what does breaking the silence actually sound like? It sounds like a woman saying, I will not let a fake memoir define me. I will not let strangers turn my marriage into a conspiracy. I will not let my son think, for even a moment, that his mother had anything to do with his father's death. It sounds like plain, unflashy sentences that don't trend as hard as drama, but carry more weight than any rumor could. It sounds like choosing to repeat what is real instead of inventing what is easy. That is the contradiction inside this story. The title promises a bombshell, but the bombshell is clarity. The shock is how simple the denial is when it comes from the person who lived it. And the twist is that the biggest drama right now is not a hidden plot from the 90s, but a modern legal fight over proceeds, contracts, and transparency. Welcome to the part of legacy no one dreams about when they first fall in love at a photo shoot, the after, with all its complicated paperwork and unending debates. And just when you think this is where the story ends, consider this. Every few years, another rumor will try to rewrite who Biggie was, who Faith was, and who Diddy was. But rumors have short legs. The music runs marathons. The love letter Faith wrote in The King and I, the way she curated Legacy, the interviews where she tells the truth about the chaos and the care, those survive. If you've made it this far, here's the real question. If a lie can trend in a day but the truth takes decades to say out loud, which one should history trust? If this is just the tip of the iceberg, what else is Hollywood hiding inside the stories we think we already know? What detail from that night in Los Angeles still lies in a file drawer, waiting for the right person to open it? What would justice even look like now? For Faith, for CJ, for Tiana, for everyone who loved Christopher Wallace as a man, and not just as a myth. Tell me what you think. Did Faith's clarity finally settle the rumor storm for you? Or does the internet's echo make it impossible to hear anything but noise? What part of her story hit you hardest? The fights she owns? The music she built, or the strength it takes to say a simple no when a complicated lie sounds more exciting? Drop your thoughts below, keep it respectful, and remember, behind every headline is a family that has to live with the words we play with for entertainment.